Hey guys, Zach here, undergroundstrength.tv, finishing up my final workout at the Underground Strength Gym here in New Jersey. And a couple things run through my mind. Today I was watching two videos, one of Cary Kolat, one of the best wrestlers, one of the best wrestlers in the world. Long story behind that, but definitely was the best wrestler in the world at his time, and probably the most technical, most understanding of wrestling skills that I know of. Amazing coach, Cary Kolat, and amazing wrestler, amazing guy. He made a video of some photos and his trip when he went to see the Cuban wrestlers, and that photo had floated around of their weight room, and basically it was like a couple pull-up bars, a flat bench, some rusty barbells, and that's it. I've seen some MMA teams head out and work with the Cuban national boxing team, and same thing, just a real shoddy weight room. And then I had seen, didn't see it all, but on Flow Wrestling, the documentary on Terry Brands called Terry. And in a nutshell, Cary said in his video that, all the fancy, the flash, we don't need it, you don't need it, you don't need it for wrestling, which is absolutely right. And then he said, he goes, if you just work your ass off on pull-ups and push-ups and bodyweight stuff, you will be fine. And that's really where I disagree, and I'm going to kind of dig into why. Even a couple years ago, I met Cary. We spoke, presented at the Maryland State Wrestling Association, and he was, I think, at UNC or NC State. I always get them confused. The guys will hate me, but he said, I don't really worry about what the guys are doing with the lifting. As long as they're lifting hard, that's what matters. Now, there's two sides to this. I look at guys like Cary Kolat, who may or may not have had a good strength coach when he was at Penn State in Lock Haven. When he was at Penn State, I think they had a high-intensity guy who was doing one all-out set. He was doing thousands of push-ups when he was a kid. His dad was having him do it every night. Then watching Terry Brands, Tom Brands, those guys, and looking at Iowa lifting, the technique is horrific. There's really no science or blending of science and technique behind it all. It's just basically smash and obliterate and beat the shit out of every piece of equipment, free weight machine that stands in your way. And they dominate like that. And it takes a specific mindset of a wrestler, of an athlete of any type, to fall into that. But what is 98%, 99% is they don't fall into that badass gladiator mentality. When I was a young kid at the John Smith intensive camp, I remember John Smith was already a gold medalist. He had won 3 or 4 or maybe 5 world titles. He was training for his second gold medal in the Olympics. And he was lifting in the weight room, doing cable crossovers and tricep pushdowns and just like wrestling everything. And he didn't know how to lift, but he wrestled so intensely and drilled so hard, which is what Cary said is your true strength work, which is very, very true. But here's the kicker. Most wrestlers, they don't understand intensity. They don't understand tough and go hard. They're just not raised that way anymore. So we have to build them up through that. Me being at Lehigh last year, I don't just believe, but I know I made a very big impact, not just physically on our wrestlers, but also mentally, emotionally, helping them rebound from losses, helping them gain confidence. A confident wrestler is a more successful wrestler. And when I say being strong, I don't just mean how much weight can you lift. There's all types of strengths. There's strength, speed, strength, absolute strength, relative strength. There's all these unique, special strengths that have to be developed. And what I always talk about is when I'm training wrestlers, training athletes, I blend science with hell. As all these years go on, we have a different breed of athlete out there. We don't have kids that are as tough as, these street kids that we used to have. In college, it's different, especially at the Division I level. They are recruiting successful kids, tough kids who get it. Not all wrestlers are going to be fine with just doing bodyweight work. They won't work the bodyweight exercises hard enough. They won't work them frequently enough, and it won't be enough to change what's upstairs. And A confident wrestler who is blended with high skill technique, can be a very deadly wrestler. Now, I've seen it both. I've seen very high skilled wrestlers who are just weak in the weight room, kick ass on the mat. And I've seen skilled wrestlers get beat by lesser skill who are stronger, tougher, meaner. Why? They've been trained that way through some sort of a strength program, be it something in a gym, be it manual labor, be it working on a farm, but they got beat up, they got out toughened. So there must be a blending of the two. And to say you're gonna be fine with just calisthenics is wrong. Carrie did say, yeah, I'll get strong anywhere. So will I, and so will I do it with any of the other guys. Squatting with somebody on your back, pushing cars, pushing trucks. I always feel like our toughest wrestlers are guys that were just the nastiest, were that first group of guys I trained out of my house. When we would train a little bit in the garage, then they'd be in my backyard carrying tree logs, climbing a rope that was hanging from the tree, swinging that sledgehammer. They used to do that for 20 minutes. They would do 20 or 30 sledgehammer strikes. They would carry the log for a lap or two. Then they would do 10 squats with the tree log. And then they would climb the rope. And I remember starting them at 5 minutes or 6 minutes, a wrestling match. And then every week it went 8, 10, 12, built them up to 20 minutes. I'd take them down to the playground. They'd push the truck 100, 150 feet. Then they'd sprint the hill. When they'd get to the top of the hill, they would pummel and hand fight. I called it a brawling drill. I learned it from Dan Gable's Competitor Supreme. Then they'd be on the grass, long stretch of grass. They would drag the sled across the grass, sprint across the parking lot, military press the picnic table, pull-ups on the monkey bars, sprint back, drag the sled, push the truck, just building badasses. And I felt it worked better, especially when I first opened the gym. I felt like our guys became, as you know, Mickey said in Rocky, civilized. But like my one friend says, he was a state champ and an All-American in college. He always goes, Rocky's a movie. It's not the real thing. Watching Terry, he said, when he learned to train differently, Dan Gable said, you train hard when you feel awesome. When you don't feel awesome, you do little things to get you back to feeling awesome. That's how I like to train wrestlers. I auto-regulate. But there's also times where the mind, is saying, and that's where we have to have a breakthrough. That athlete has to develop the mind, and I know how to train that athlete one way. The other athlete who's very strong but not explosive and agile, he needs a little bit of a different workout. The other athlete that gasses out, the wrestler that's gassing out in the third period or the second period, he needs a different style of training. Not super special, but little tweaks that build that individual. Not everybody's like Carrie Colat or Tommy and Terry Brands or John Smith. Those guys are the best in the world. They were just animals. And I'm not gonna say they were freaks, because I don't think they were freaks. They built themselves into freaks. They built themselves mentally, they built themselves physically, and they had the right environment. A lot of wrestlers nowadays, they don't have the right environment, whether it's the shit they watch on TV, the stuff on the internet, the friends they hang out with, the coaches that they have. All of those things are either adding up in a good way or taking away points, from their true capabilities. And that's the tough thing. And having the Underground Strength Gym and what we did today and what I've been doing since day one, I'm proud of it, because I know we're building badasses that could not be built if they weren't here. And there's a big reason why. We've got kids that show up here with losing records, and they blend this with their added skill work at the clubs, and they end up going to states, being all state. We've had them all here. All state, state champ, All-American, national champs. We've had them all here. And this has played an integral part of it. If somebody has the right mentality, they could get away with less of a dialed-in program. But it's got to blend what's upstairs with the physical, with the mat. It's a very unique blend of science and health. I write a lot about that in my Encyclopedia of Underground Strength. So that's my kind of answer to how Colat thinks about training, strength and conditioning, and maybe seeing what the Cubans do. The Cubans don't grow up in the posh environment of America. They grow up being fighters. Look, this is why I always say, why do we see great football players coming from the inner cities? Why are there state champs and state qualifiers coming from Camden, one of the most dangerous cities in the country? Those kids are worried about getting beat up or getting caught in a drive-by shooting walking from school to home. There's no wrestling club in Camden, okay? They're getting street tough. And those things give them edge over the kid that comes from the perfect place. And I'm going to go to Rocky. You know, what did Mickey say to Rocky? I think it was Rocky 3. He goes, Rock, worst thing that happened to you is the worst thing that could happen to a fighter. You got civilized. And that's what you must always be careful about, getting civilized. And that's why I don't like to train pretty or make it too perfect, because perfect is actually the enemy of their greatness. I'm Zach Evnesh, undergroundstrength.tv. Click the links below. Lots of information for you guys to pick up. And that's it, guys. Thanks a lot.